The dust still clung to Olivia Gardner's black mourning dress when she found the mutilated cattle on the north pasture, their throats torn open, and their eyes glazed with death under the merciless July sun of 1878. She had buried her husband Thomas 3 weeks prior, and now someone or something was destroying what little she had left of their decade of hard work on this unforgiving Colorado land outside Montrose. The vultures circled overhead like death itself had come to collect another payment, and Olivia knew with a sinking certainty that she could not handle this alone. Her hands trembled as she rode back to the ranch house, the Winchester rifle heavy across her lap. The other ranchers in the valley had made it clear they expected her to fail and sell out within the year. A woman alone could not possibly manage 2,000 acres and 300 head of cattle, they said. She had seen the calculation in their eyes at the funeral, wondering who would get the best price on her land. But Thomas had loved this ranch with every fiber of his being, and she would be damned if she let it slip away, because of whatever predator was stalking her herd. She reached the house as the sun began its descent toward the San Juan Mountains, painting the sky in shades of crimson that reminded her too much of blood. Her foreman, Dutch Wilson, waited on the porch with his hat in his weathered hands. The expression on his face told her everything she needed to know before he even spoke. "Found 4 more down by the creek, Mrs. Gardner," he said quietly. "That makes 11 in 2 days. Whatever it is, it ain't natural. The boys are spooked and I cannot blame them." Olivia dismounted and tied her mare to the hitching post. "What do you mean it is not natural?" Dutch shifted his weight uncomfortably. "The tracks around the kills do not make sense. Jim and Carson both grew up hunting these mountains, and they say they have never seen anything like it. Looks almost like a big cat, but the stride is wrong, and there is something else." "What?" "The cattle were not eaten, just killed, like something was practicing." A chill ran down Olivia's spine despite the heat. "We need to find whoever is doing this. Tomorrow I will ride into Montrose and see if Sheriff Crawford can recommend someone to track whatever this is." Dutch looked doubtful. "With all respect, Mrs. Gardner, the sheriff has made it pretty clear he does not have time for what he calls range disputes. He thinks someone is just trying to scare you off your land." "Then I will find someone else," Olivia said firmly. She had not come this far to give up now. She had been 17 when she married Thomas Gardner and moved from Philadelphia to this wild territory. Her family had been horrified, certain she would be killed by Indians or outlaws or simple hardship. She had proved them wrong by learning to shoot, to ride, to help birth calves in the freezing spring nights. She had buried 2 stillborn children in the plot behind the house and kept going. She had nursed Thomas through pneumonia one terrible winter and kept the ranch running when he could barely stand. And when a falling horse had broken his neck 3 weeks ago, leaving her alone at 27 with no children and a mountain of debt, she had refused to let grief destroy her. The next morning, Olivia rode into Montrose with Dutch at her side. The town was growing rapidly with the silver boom in the surrounding mountains, and the main street bustled with miners, cowboys, merchants, and the occasional painted lady heading home after a long night. The sheriff's office occupied a small building next to the bank, and Sheriff Crawford looked about as enthusiastic to see Olivia as he would be to see a rabid skunk. "Mrs. Gardner," he said, barely looking up from his desk, "what can I do for you?" "I need help tracking whatever is killing my cattle," Olivia said without preamble. 11 dead in 2 days, and my men cannot make sense of the signs." Crawford sighed and leaned back in his chair. "As I told your foreman last week, this sounds like a range dispute. Probably your neighbor trying to encourage you to sell. Best thing you can do is take one of the offers you have received and move back east where you belong." Olivia felt her jaw tighten. "My husband built that ranch from nothing. I will not abandon it because someone is trying to scare me off." "If you will not help me, then recommend someone who can track whatever is out there." The sheriff studied her for a moment, then shrugged. "There is an Apache half-breed who sometimes does tracking work. Goes by Thomas Zamry. His mother was Jicarilla Apache, his father was some Mexican trapper. The Apache kicked him out for being half-white, and the whites do not trust him for being half-Apache. But I will give him this. He can read sign better than any man I have ever seen. Found a lost child last month by following tracks that were 3 days old and half washed out by rain. If anyone can tell you what is killing your cattle, it will be him. Where can I find him? He camps outside town, usually on the north side near the river. Just follow the path past the livery about a mile, cannot miss it." Olivia thanked him curtly and left, with Dutch following. The foreman looked worried. "Mrs. Gardner, are you sure about this? Folks say that half-breed is dangerous. Apache ways, you know, not civilized." "Right now I need someone who can track, not someone who is civilized," Olivia said. "Wait here, I will go alone." "That is not safe," Dutch protested. "If he wanted to hurt people, he would not be camped peacefully outside town," Olivia replied. She had dealt with prejudice before, both against herself as a woman in a man's world and against the various people who worked on the ranch over the years. She had learned not to judge based on what others said. She found Thomas Zamry's camp exactly where the sheriff had indicated. It was a simple setup: a small canvas lean-to, a fire ring, and a string of drying meat hung between 2 cottonwood trees. The man himself sat cross-legged near the fire, working on what appeared to be a saddle repair. He looked up as she approached, and Olivia was struck by the intensity of his gaze. He appeared to be in his late 20s or early 30s, with long black hair tied back with a strip of leather, high cheekbones, and eyes that seemed to see right through her. He wore a mix of Apache and white clothing, buckskin pants, a cotton shirt, and moccasins instead of boots. "Mr. Zamry?" she asked, stopping a respectful distance from his camp. He stood with fluid grace, setting aside his work. "Yes, you are the rancher's widow, Mrs. Gardner." His voice was low and accented in a way she could not quite place, neither fully Apache nor Mexican nor American. "You know who I am." "I know many things," he said. "I know your husband died 3 weeks ago when his horse threw him crossing the North Creek. I know you have been having trouble with something killing your cattle. I know the other ranchers are waiting for you to fail so they can buy your land cheap. I know you rode into town today to ask the sheriff for help, and he sent you to me because he does not care what happens to you." Olivia felt a mixture of unease and fascination. "How do you know all that?" "I read signs. Not just tracks in the dirt, but signs in how people move, how they speak, what they do not say. Your dress is mourning black but showing wear. You have been working hard, not just grieving. Your hands have new calluses. You are doing work your husband used to do. The dust on your riding skirt is from the north pasture area, where the iron-rich soil has that particular red color. You carry yourself like someone who has not slept well in days, worried. And the sheriff always sends people to me when he does not want to help them himself." "I need you to find out what is killing my cattle," Olivia said directly. "I can pay you, not much, but something." Thomas Zamry studied her for a long moment. "Why do you care so much about this ranch? You could sell, take the money, go back to the city, have an easier life." "Because it was my husband's dream," Olivia said. "And because it became my dream too. Because I have bled and sweated and cried for that land, and I will not let someone take it from me." Something shifted in his expression, a recognition of something he understood. I will come look at your cattle. If I can find what is killing them, we will talk about payment. If I cannot find anything, you owe me nothing." "That is more than fair," Olivia said. "Can you come today? I will gather my things and meet you at your ranch before sunset. I know where it is." Of course he did, Olivia thought. He probably knew the location of every ranch, every mine, every camp within 50 miles. She thanked him and rode back into town to collect Dutch. The foreman was even less enthusiastic about the arrangement when she told him. "You are bringing an Apache onto the ranch. Mrs. Gardner, the boys are not going to like this." "The boys can accept it or find work elsewhere," Olivia said firmly. "I am trying to save this ranch and I need the best tracker I can find. That appears to be Thomas Zamri." True to his word, Thomas Zamri arrived at the ranch just as the sun touched the mountain peaks. He rode a paint horse that looked as wild and untamed as its owner, with no saddle, only a blanket and a rope bridle. The ranch hands gathered near the bunkhouse, watching with suspicion as he dismounted. Olivia came out to meet him. "Mr. Zamri, thank you for coming. I will show you to the most recent kill site. First, show me your cattle, the living ones. I need to understand what they should look like, how they behave." It was an unusual request, but Olivia led him to the nearest pasture where about 50 head grazed in the fading light. Thomas stood at the fence for several minutes, just watching. Then he climbed over and walked among the cattle with complete confidence. The animals barely reacted to him, as if he were simply part of the landscape. He examined several of them closely, looking at their eyes, their mouths, their hooves, even smelling them. When he returned, he said, "Now show me the dead ones." They rode together to the north pasture as darkness began to fall. Dutch had wanted to come, but Olivia told him to stay and keep the men calm. She was aware of how close Thomas rode beside her, how he seemed to be constantly scanning the landscape even in the dimming light. At the kill site, he dismounted before she could even point out the carcasses. "Stay here," he said, and moved forward in a crouch. Olivia watched as he circled the dead cattle, sometimes getting so close he was nearly touching the ground with his face. He moved in widening spirals, occasionally stopping to examine something she could not see. Once he picked up what looked like a small tuft of fur and held it to his nose. The whole process took nearly an hour, and by the time he returned to her, the stars were out in full force. "Well?" she asked. "It is a mountain lion," he said. "A very large male, probably over 200 pounds, but he is injured. His right front paw is damaged, maybe caught in a trap or crushed by a falling rock. He cannot hunt properly, cannot bring down deer or elk, so he is killing cattle which are easier targets. But he is not eating them because he is not actually hungry yet. He is killing to practice, to see if he can still do it with his injury. That is what you got from looking at tracks in the dark. I got it from many things. The stride pattern shows a limp. The claw marks on one cow show 4 claws on the left paw, but only 2 on the right. The others are broken or missing. The way he killed them, from the front, instead of from behind like a healthy cat would do, shows he cannot run properly to chase them. And the tuft of fur I found has blood on it, old blood from his wound." Olivia felt a chill. "Can you track him? Can you stop him?" "I can track him. Stopping him is different. A wounded mountain lion is one of the most dangerous animals in these mountains. He has nothing to lose." "But yes, I can track him and kill him if that is what you want." "It is what I need," Olivia said. "How long will it take?" "I will start at first light. Could be a day, could be 3. He is moving, looking for easier hunting. I will need to stay on your land, camp near the pastures." "You can stay in the bunkhouse," Olivia offered. Thomas shook his head. "Your men would not sleep well with me there, and I would not sleep well knowing they were not comfortable. I will camp near the creek, but I could use some provisions. Flour, coffee, salt if you can spare it. Of course. Come to the house, and I will put together what you need. At the ranch house, Olivia filled a burlap sack with supplies while Thomas waited outside on the porch. She noticed he never turned his back fully to the bunkhouse, where the ranch hands were watching. When she brought out the sack, he took it with a nod of thanks. "You should be careful, Mrs. Gardner," he said quietly. "I do not think the mountain lion is your only problem. I saw boot prints near one of the kill sites. Someone is following the cat's work, watching it. Maybe hoping it will do enough damage to force you to leave. Who? I do not know yet. But the signs are there. Watch your back." He left then, melting into the darkness so completely that Olivia lost sight of him within seconds. She stood on the porch for a long time, thinking about what he had said. Someone was actively trying to drive her off her land. The question was who, and how far they were willing to go. That night, she slept with the Winchester by her bed and woke at every small sound. When dawn came, she was exhausted but determined. She had work to do as she did every day. Cattle to check, fences to mend, books to balance. She could not spend all her time worrying about mountain lions and saboteurs, but throughout the day her thoughts kept drifting to Thomas Zamri. There was something about him that fascinated her. It was not just his unusual background or his tracking skills. It was the way he moved with such confidence, the way he saw things no one else did, the way he seemed completely comfortable in his own skin despite the fact that he belonged nowhere, accepted by neither his Apache kin nor white society. She admired that strength, that refusal to be diminished by rejection. She was checking on the horses in the stable late that afternoon when Dutch found her with news. "That half-breed found something. He is waiting at the north fence line." Olivia rode out immediately. Thomas was standing beside his horse, and even from a distance she could see the grim set of his jaw. When she reached him, he gestured to the ground. "The cat killed 2 more last night, right after I started tracking him. But look at this." He pointed to a set of boot prints near the carcasses, clearly visible in the soft earth. "Same man as before. He came here after the cat killed took something from one of the cows. See how his tracks go to the body, then leave with deeper impressions. He was carrying something when he left. My guess is he took meat or a hide, something to make it look like rustling instead of just an animal attack. Why would someone do that? To confuse things. To make it harder for you to know what you are fighting. A mountain lion you can shoot. A rustler you can chase down. But both at once. That makes you look like you cannot control your own land, makes you look weak." Olivia felt anger burning in her chest. "Can you tell who it is?" "Not yet. But I will. I am going to follow the cat today, try to find his den. But tomorrow I will follow these boot prints and see where they lead." "Be careful," Olivia said, and was surprised by how much she meant it. She barely knew this man, yet she found herself worrying about him heading off alone after a wounded mountain lion. Thomas looked at her for a moment, and something passed between them, a flicker of understanding. "I am always careful, Mrs. Gardner. It is how I have stayed alive this long." He mounted his horse in one smooth motion and rode north, following tracks that Olivia could not even see. She returned to the ranch feeling unsettled in ways that had nothing to do with dead cattle. That evening she sat on the porch as she often did, watching the sunset paint the mountains purple and gold. She thought about Thomas, about the life he must lead, always on the outside looking in. She thought about her own isolation, about how the other ranchers' wives had stopped visiting after Thomas's death, as if widowhood were contagious. She thought about loneliness and how it could grow like a weed in your heart if you let it. Thomas returned 2 days later, and Olivia knew immediately from his face that he had succeeded. He dismounted at the house and walked up to the porch where she was mending a bridle. "The cat is dead," he said without preamble. "Found his den in a rock outcrop about 5 miles north. He was in bad shape, would have died on his own in another week or two, but he would have killed more of your cattle first. I made it quick." "Thank you," Olivia said, feeling relief wash over her. "That is one problem solved at least. But not the only one. I followed those boot prints yesterday. They lead to your eastern neighbor's property, Frank Morrison." Olivia felt her stomach drop. Frank Morrison owned the ranch adjacent to hers, a hard man with a reputation for getting what he wanted. His wife had died years ago, and his 2 sons ran wild through the territory, picking fights and causing trouble. Morrison had made an offer on her land the day after Thomas's funeral, so low it was almost insulting. "Are you certain?" The tracks end at his barn. "And I found fresh cattle hide there from one of your cows. He has been taking samples from the kills, probably to show to the other ranchers as proof that you cannot manage the herd. Evidence that you should sell out." "That bastard," Olivia said, then immediately flushed. "I apologize. That was not proper." "You do not need to apologize to me for speaking truth," Thomas said. There was a hint of amusement in his eyes. "What do you want to do about Morrison?" "I want to confront him. I want him to know that I know what he has been doing." "That might not be wise. Men like Morrison do not like being cornered, especially by a woman. He might get desperate, do something worse." "Then what do you suggest?" Thomas thought for a moment. "Let me talk to him, man to man. Sometimes that works better." "Why would you do that for me?" "You have done what I hired you to do. The cat is dead." "Because I do not like men who prey on widows," Thomas said simply. "And because I have seen how hard you work to keep this ranch running. You deserve to succeed." Olivia felt something warm unfold in her chest at his words. "Thank you. But I should come with you. It is my fight. Then we will go together tomorrow, but we will be smart about it." That evening, Olivia invited Thomas to share dinner at the ranch house. It was an unusual invitation, and she saw Dutch's disapproval, but she did not care. Thomas had earned her respect and her gratitude. He accepted the invitation after a moment's hesitation, and they ate together at the simple wooden table in her kitchen. "Tell me about your family," Olivia said as they ate, "if that is not too personal." Thomas was quiet for a moment, then said, "My father was a Mexican trapper named Francisco Zamri. He met my mother when he was trading with her band of Jicarilla Apache. They fell in love, and he stayed with the band for several years. I was born during that time. But when I was 7, my father was killed by Comancheros during a raid. My mother's people tolerated me before that because my father was respected. After he died, they saw me as only half Apache, not enough. When I was 12, the elders told my mother she had to choose, stay with the band and send me away or leave with me. She chose to stay. She had family obligations, I understood even then." "That must have been so hard," Olivia said softly. "What did you do?" "I survived. I learned to track from my Apache grandfather before I left, learned to read the land and the animals. I spent time with Mexican traders, learned Spanish and some of their ways. I worked on ranches, learned about cattle and horses. I worked as a scout for the army for a while, but I did not like the things they asked me to do. Now I do tracking work for whoever needs it and can pay. I go where I am needed and move on when the work is done." "That sounds like a lonely life." Thomas met her eyes across the table. "It is. But it is the life I have. What about you, Mrs. Gardner? How did a woman from Philadelphia end up on a ranch in Colorado?" Olivia told him her story, about meeting Thomas Gardner when he came east to buy breeding stock, about falling in love with his passion and his dreams, about the hardships and the losses and the small triumphs. She found herself telling him things she had never told anyone, about her fears and her doubts, and her determination. They talked until the candles burned low, and when Thomas finally left to return to his camp, Olivia realized it was the first time since her husband's death that she had not felt completely alone. The next morning, they rode together to the Morrison ranch. Frank Morrison was in his corral working with a new horse when they arrived, and his eyes narrowed when he saw Thomas riding beside Olivia. "Mrs. Gardner," he said, not bothering to dismount. "What brings you here, finally ready to accept my offer?" "I am here to tell you that I know what you have been doing," Olivia said, keeping her voice steady. "I know you have been following the mountain lion kills, taking evidence, trying to make me look incompetent." Morrison's expression hardened. "That is a serious accusation. You have any proof?" Thomas urged his horse forward slightly. "I tracked your boot prints from the kill sites back to your barn. I found the cattle hide you took. I can show the sheriff if needed." "And who are you?" Morrison sneered. "Oh, I know. You are that half-breed Apache. Why would anyone believe you over me?" "Because I am very good at what I do," Thomas said calmly. "And because if this goes to court, I can lay out every piece of evidence, every track, every timeline. Juries might not like me, but they like facts, and the facts say you have been sabotaging Mrs. Gardner's ranch." Morrison's face flushed with anger. "You need to be careful, boy. Accidents happen to people who stick their noses where they do not belong." "Is that a threat?" Olivia asked sharply. "It is a fact of life," Morrison said. He turned his gaze to Olivia. "You are making a mistake, widow. You cannot run that ranch alone, and bringing in Apache trash to help you is not going to change that. My offer stands for another week. After that, I might not be so generous." "I will never sell to you," Olivia said. "Stay off my land, Morrison. If I catch you or anyone working for you on my property, I will have you arrested." They left before Morrison could respond, but Olivia could feel his eyes boring into her back the entire ride away. When they were out of sight of the ranch, she let out a long breath. "That went about as well as could be expected," Thomas said. "He knows we are watching now. He will be more careful, or more dangerous," Olivia replied. "That too. You should be careful, Mrs. Gardner. Keep someone close to the house at night." Over the following weeks, Thomas stayed on at the ranch. Olivia told herself it was because she needed the extra security, needed someone watching for Morrison's next move. But the truth was more complicated. She found herself looking for excuses to talk to him, to learn more about his life and his thoughts. They fell into a pattern of sharing dinner several times a week, long conversations that ranged from the practical to the philosophical. Thomas taught her tracking skills, showing her how to read the small signs that told the story of what had passed through the land. She taught him about ranch management, about breeding lines and market prices, and the business side of cattle. They worked together to repair fences and move herds, and the ranch hands gradually grew accustomed to his presence, even if they never fully accepted him. Dutch finally pulled Olivia aside one day. "Mrs. Gardner, folks are starting to talk about you and that Apache. It is not proper him being here so much." "I do not care what people say," Olivia replied. "Thomas has helped save this ranch. He has more honor than most of the white men I know." "Maybe so, but you need to think about your reputation. You are a widow still in mourning. And he is, well, he is not white. People will not understand." "Then people are fools," Olivia said firmly. But Dutch's words planted a seed of worry. She knew how society worked, knew the unforgiving rules that governed a woman's behavior. She was already suspect for trying to run a ranch alone. Any hint of impropriety could destroy her completely. That evening she told Thomas about the conversation. They were sitting on the porch watching another spectacular sunset, a habit they had fallen into. "Dutch is right," Thomas said quietly. I should probably move on soon. I have been here almost a month. People will talk and that will hurt you. I do not want you to go, Olivia said, then immediately regretted her honesty. But when she looked at Thomas, she saw her own feelings reflected in his eyes. I do not want to go either, he admitted. But Olivia, we both know this cannot go anywhere. You are a white woman, a property owner, part of respectable society even if they do not always treat you well. I am a half-breed who camps outside town because I am not welcome in it. There is no future for us. It was the first time he had used her first name, and hearing it from his lips sent a shiver through her. Why does it have to be that way? Why cannot people just see you for who you are? Because people are afraid of what is different. They need to put everyone in boxes, and I do not fit in any of their boxes. I stopped fighting that truth a long time ago. I have not been completely honest with you, Olivia said, her heart pounding. About why I want you to stay. It is not just about the ranch or Morrison or any of that. I look forward to seeing you every day. I think about you when you are not here. When my husband died, I thought I would never feel alive again. But with you, I feel alive. Thomas turned to look at her fully, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. Olivia, you need to understand what you are saying. If we do this, if we acknowledge what is between us, it will change everything. People will turn against you. You could lose the ranch, lose your standing in the community, lose everything. Maybe I am tired of living my life based on what other people think, Olivia said. She reached out and took his hand, feeling the calloused warmth of his palm against hers. Maybe I am tired of being alone. Thomas intertwined his fingers with hers. I am too. I have been alone my whole life. But I will not let you destroy yourself for me. You have worked too hard for this ranch. Then help me keep it, Olivia said. Stay, work with me. We will face whatever comes together. That night marked a turning point. They did not speak of it explicitly, but something had shifted between them. Thomas moved his camp closer to the ranch house. They spent more time together, and the ranch hands watched with a mixture of disapproval and resignation. The trouble came, as Olivia had known it would, from Frank Morrison. It started small, with fences cut in the night and cattle driven off into the wrong pastures. Then one of her ranch hands quit, saying he had been offered better wages elsewhere. Then another. Dutch stayed loyal, but he warned her that Morrison was spreading rumors in town, saying that Olivia Gardner had lost her mind with grief and taken up with a savage. He is trying to isolate you, Thomas said when she told him. Make everyone think you are unstable so that when he makes another offer on your land, the banks will pressure you to take it. I will not sell, Olivia said stubbornly. I will work this ranch with just Dutch and you if I have to. You might have to, Thomas warned. Things came to a head on a hot August day when Morrison rode onto Olivia's property with his 2 sons and 3 ranch hands. Olivia, Thomas, and Dutch were working on the south pasture fence when they appeared. Morrison sat his horse with casual arrogance, and his sons looked eager for trouble. Mrs. Gardner, Morrison called out, I have come to make you one final offer, $3,000 for your land and stock. That is more than fair, considering your situation. My answer is the same as it has always been, Olivia said, standing her ground. No. That is a mistake, Morrison said. You cannot keep this ranch going. You have lost half your hands. Your cattle are scattered. And you are living in sin with this Apache. The whole county is talking about it. Get off my land, Olivia said coldly. Morrison shook his head. I am trying to help you, widow, trying to save you from yourself. But if you will not listen to reason, then maybe you need to see what happens when you make enemies. He nodded to his sons, and they suddenly spurred their horses forward, directly at the fence that Olivia, Thomas, and Dutch had just repaired. The horses crashed through it, splintering posts and scattering wire. Morrison and his men followed, trampling through into the pasture beyond where dozens of Olivia's cattle grazed. "No," Olivia shouted, but Morrison just laughed. "This is what happens when you do not accept good advice," he called back. Then he and his men drove their horses through the herd, scattering the cattle in every direction, creating chaos. Thomas was already on his horse, racing after them. Olivia and Dutch followed, but by the time they caught up, Morrison and his men were already galloping away, leaving behind a disaster of panicked cattle and destroyed fencing. "That son of a bitch," Dutch said, his face red with fury. "We need to get the sheriff." "The sheriff will not help," Olivia said, feeling defeated. She looked at the mess, calculating how much time and money it would take to fix. Time and money she did not have. Thomas rode back to them, his expression grim. This was a message. He is escalating, next time might be worse. "What can I do?" Olivia asked, hating the helplessness in her voice. "Fight back," Thomas said. "But smart. Not with violence, but with evidence. Morrison just committed a crime in front of witnesses. We document everything, we get statements, we build a case. And we make sure everyone in town knows what he did." Over the next week, they did exactly that. Thomas tracked down 2 of Morrison's former ranch hands who had quit in disgust at his methods and convinced them to give statements about his sabotage. Dutch spread the word in town about what Morrison had done. Olivia filed a formal complaint with the sheriff, and while Crawford was not enthusiastic, he could not ignore multiple witnesses. But the real turning point came from an unexpected source. Olivia was in town buying supplies when she ran into Margaret Chen, whose husband owned the general store. Margaret had always been kind to Olivia, one of the few women who did not treat her like a pariah after Thomas's death. "Mrs. Gardner," Margaret said quietly, "I wanted you to know that not everyone believes the rumors Morrison is spreading. My husband and I think what you are doing is admirable, trying to keep your ranch running. And that young man helping you, Mr. Zamri, he has always been honest in his dealings with us. Whatever people say, we judge a man by his actions, not his blood." The words brought tears to Olivia's eyes. "Thank you. You have no idea how much that means." "There are others who feel the same way," Margaret continued. "Morrison has made enemies over the years with his bullying. People are starting to speak up. Just wanted you to know you are not as alone as you might think." When Olivia returned to the ranch and told Thomas what Margaret had said, she saw something in his expression she had never seen before: hope. "Maybe things can change," he said quietly. "Maybe not everywhere, but here in this place, maybe they can be different." That night, under a sky brilliant with stars, Thomas kissed Olivia for the first time. It was gentle and tentative, as if he was afraid she might pull away. But she did not pull away. She wrapped her arms around him and kissed him back, pouring all her loneliness and longing and love into that moment. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "I know it is fast, and I know the world will not approve, but I love you." "I love you too," Thomas said, his voice rough with emotion. "I have tried not to. I have told myself 100 reasons why I should not, but I cannot help it. You are everything I never thought I could have." They made love that night in Olivia's bedroom, slow and tender and full of reverence. Afterward, lying in Thomas's arms, Olivia felt more at peace than she had in years. She knew the road ahead would be difficult. She knew they would face prejudice and opposition. But she also knew she had found something rare and precious, and she would fight to keep it. The resolution with Morrison came sooner than expected. The formal complaint, combined with the statements from his former ranch hands and the growing disapproval in town, put pressure on him that he had not anticipated. When 2 of his largest business partners threatened to pull their investments if he did not settle the matter, Morrison finally backed down. He came to the ranch one September morning, alone this time, and asked to speak with Olivia. Thomas stood nearby, watchful, but Morrison made no threats this time. "Mrs. Gardner," he said stiffly, "I am here to apologize for the damage to your fence and stock. I will pay for the repairs." "And you will stay off my property," Olivia said. It was not a question. "Yes." "You have made your position clear. I will trouble you no more." After he left, Olivia felt like she could finally breathe. The immediate threat was over. The ranch was safe, at least for now. As fall arrived in the Colorado high country, painting the aspens gold and bringing the first hint of winter cold, Olivia and Thomas settled into a life together. They did not try to hide their relationship, but neither did they flaunt it. Thomas moved into the ranch house, and they worked side by side every day, building something neither had thought possible. Not everyone approved. Some of the townspeople whispered and stared. A few former friends cut Olivia completely. But others, like Margaret Chen and her husband, offered quiet support. Dutch eventually came around, won over by Thomas's tireless work ethic and his obvious devotion to Olivia. One of the neighboring ranchers, an older man named John Sullivan who had always been fair, even started bringing his stock questions to Thomas, recognizing his expertise. In November, Olivia realized she had missed her monthly courses twice. At first she thought it was just stress, but when the nausea began, she knew. She was pregnant. The news filled her with both joy and terror. She had lost 2 babies before, both in the early months. She was afraid to hope. When she told Thomas, she saw her own fears reflected in his eyes, but also fierce protectiveness. "We will get through this," he said. "I will take care of you. Whatever happens, we face it together." The winter was hard, but they survived it. Thomas proved to be as skilled at managing cattle in harsh weather as he was at tracking. When several head got trapped in a sudden blizzard, he found them and led them to safety. When the creek froze and they needed to break ice for water, he worked tirelessly until the job was done. As Olivia's pregnancy progressed, Thomas became even more protective. He took over the heavier work, insisting she rest more. Dutch handled the business trips to town, bringing back supplies and news. The ranch hands who had stayed, seeing how hard Thomas worked and how happy Olivia was, became loyal to them both. In April of 1879, with the first wildflowers blooming across the meadows, Olivia went into labor. Thomas rode hard to town to fetch the midwife, a capable woman named Sarah who had delivered half the babies in the county. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when Olivia thought she might not survive, might lose another child. But finally, as dawn broke over the mountains, she heard a strong, healthy cry. "A boy," Sarah announced, placing the baby in Olivia's arms. "A fine, healthy boy." Olivia looked down at her son, seeing Thomas's dark eyes and high cheekbones mixed with her own features, and felt overwhelming love. Thomas stood beside the bed, tears running unashamedly down his face as he looked at his child. "What should we name him?" Olivia asked. "You choose," Thomas said. "You carried him, you brought him into the world." "Daniel," Olivia said. "Daniel Thomas Zamry, a strong name for a strong boy." Thomas bent down and kissed her forehead. "Perfect." The arrival of baby Daniel changed things in unexpected ways. When Olivia took him to town for the first time, she braced herself for disapproval. But instead, she found that a baby broke down barriers that adult prejudice had erected. Margaret Chen cooed over him and insisted on giving Olivia a handmade quilt. The doctor who checked him over declared him the healthiest baby he had seen in months. Even the sheriff, Gruff Crawford, looked at the child and said, "He is a lucky boy to have parents who love each other so much." As Daniel grew from infant to toddler, the ranch prospered. Thomas's knowledge of the land and the animals, combined with Olivia's business acumen, made them successful in ways that neither could have achieved alone. They expanded the herd, improved the bloodlines, and built a reputation for quality cattle. By 1881, the ranch was one of the most productive in the valley. Morrison had sold out and moved to Denver after a series of bad investments. Other ranchers, seeing Olivia and Thomas's success, began to treat them with grudging respect. Not everyone accepted them, but enough did that they no longer felt completely isolated. On a warm summer evening in June of 1881, Olivia sat on the porch watching Thomas teach 2-year-old Daniel to track grasshoppers in the yard. The boy's laughter rang out pure and joyful as his father patiently showed him how to move quietly, how to watch for movement. Dutch came up beside her, now officially the ranch foreman and treated more like family than an employee. "You did it, Mrs. Gardner. Saved the ranch, built something good." "We did it," Olivia corrected. "All of us, but especially Thomas. I could not have done any of it without him." "He is a good man," Dutch agreed. "I was wrong about him at first, I admit that, but he proved himself 100 times over." That night, after Daniel was asleep in his small bed, Olivia and Thomas lay together in the darkness, talking quietly about their plans for the future. "I want to marry you," Thomas said suddenly. "Properly, I mean. I know we have been living as husband and wife, but I want to make it legal. I want the world to know that you are mine and I am yours." "Are you sure?" Olivia asked. "It might cause talk again." "Let them talk. I am tired of hiding, tired of acting like what we have is something to be ashamed of. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. I want everyone to know it." They were married by a circuit preacher the following month, with Dutch and Margaret Chen serving as witnesses. It was a simple ceremony, held at the ranch, but it meant everything to both of them. Afterward, they held a small celebration, and to Olivia's surprise, more than a dozen people came, neighbors and townspeople who had come to accept their unconventional relationship. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. The ranch continued to grow. Daniel thrived, becoming a bright, curious child who loved animals and the outdoors as much as his father did. In 1883, Olivia gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Emma. And 2 years after that, another son, James. As the children grew, Thomas taught them to track, to understand the land, to respect all living things. Olivia taught them to read and write, to manage numbers, to think critically. Together, they raised children who belonged fully to both worlds, accepted by both their Apache heritage and their white heritage. The prejudice never disappeared completely. There were always those who disapproved, who whispered about the half-breed and the widow who had lowered herself. But there were more who judged the family by their actions, their hard work, their obvious love for each other and their children. By 1890, the Gardner-Zamry Ranch, as it had come to be known, was one of the most successful in Colorado. They employed over a dozen hands, ran over 1,000 head of cattle, and had earned a reputation for honesty and quality that brought buyers from as far away as Chicago. On a golden autumn day in 1890, Olivia stood on the porch of their expanded ranch house, now twice the size it had been when Thomas first arrived. She was 43 years old, her hair showing threads of silver, but she felt more alive and happy than she ever had. Thomas came up beside her, his own hair now showing gray at the temples, and wrapped his arms around her waist from behind. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything," Olivia said, leaning back against him. "About the day you came here 12 years ago, about how scared I was, how alone I felt. About how I never imagined my life could turn out like this." "Regrets?" Thomas asked. "Not a single one," Olivia said firmly. She turned in his arms to face him. "You saved me, not just the ranch, but me. You made me believe in love again, in the future, in possibilities I had given up on." "You saved me too," Thomas said softly. "I was so lost before I met you. I had no home, no place where I belonged. You gave me all of that. You gave me a family, a purpose, a reason to stay in one place and build something lasting." They kissed then, as they had thousands of times over the years, but it still felt as special as that first kiss under the stars. Daniel came running up, now a tall 12-year-old who looked more like his father every day. "Papa, can you come help me? I am trying to track that fox that has been raiding the chicken coop, but I lost the trail at the creek." "Show me," Thomas said, and father and son headed off together, Daniel chattering excitedly about what signs he had found. Emma and James, 8 and 6 respectively, were playing in the yard, building an elaborate fort from fallen branches. They looked up and waved to their mother, their faces bright with happiness. Olivia waved back, her heart full. This was what she had fought for, what she had risked everything to keep. Not just the land or the cattle or the ranch buildings, but this family, this love, this life they had built together against all odds. That evening, the whole family gathered around the dinner table, a ritual they observed every night unless work absolutely prevented it. They talked about their day, their plans, their dreams. Thomas told stories about his tracking work, making the children laugh with tales of stubborn animals and impossible trails. Olivia talked about the new contracts they had secured, the plans to expand the breeding program. After the children were in bed, Thomas and Olivia sat on the porch as they always did, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. The mountains stood as eternal guardians on the horizon, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote sang to the moon. "Do you ever think about what your life would have been like if you had not come here?" Olivia asked. "If Sheriff Crawford had not sent me to find you that day?" "Sometimes," Thomas admitted. "I would probably still be drifting, taking whatever tracking work I could find, camping outside towns where I was not welcome. Alone." He paused. "And you? Do you think about what would have happened if you had given up, sold the ranch, gone back east?" "I think I would have been safe," Olivia said slowly. "Comfortable, maybe, but not happy, not truly alive. I needed this challenge, needed to prove to myself that I could survive anything. And I needed you, even though I did not know it at the time." "We were both lost," Thomas said. "And we found each other." "More than that," Olivia said. "We built something together, something that will outlast us. This ranch, these children, the life we have made. It all matters. It is all proof that love can overcome anything, even the ugliest prejudices." Years continued to pass, marked by the changing seasons and the growing children. Daniel became an expert tracker like his father, but he also inherited his mother's head for business. Emma showed a gift for working with horses, able to gentle even the most skittish animals. James had his mother's love of books and learning, spending hours reading everything he could get his hands on. In 1895, when Olivia was 48 and Thomas was 52, they attended Daniel's wedding. Their son had fallen in love with a rancher's daughter from a neighboring valley, a smart, capable young woman named Catherine, who reminded Olivia a lot of herself at that age. The wedding was well attended, proof of how much the world had changed in the 17 years since Thomas had first arrived at the ranch. Standing with Thomas as they watched their son marry, Olivia thought about all the obstacles they had overcome, all the people who had said their love was wrong or impossible. They had proved everyone wrong simply by living their lives with honesty and courage, by raising good children, by being good neighbors and fair employers. "Our grandchildren will grow up in a different world," Thomas said quietly, as if reading her thoughts. Maybe not perfect, but better. And that is because people like us refused to accept the way things were. We insisted on something better. I hope you are right, Olivia said. I hope they never have to face what we faced. Within a year, Catherine was pregnant, and in the spring of 1896, Olivia held her first grandchild, a beautiful baby girl named Olivia Rose, after both her grandmothers. The wonder of holding that tiny life, knowing that she was part of the legacy they had built, brought tears to Olivia's eyes. Thomas stood beside her, his arm around her shoulders, and she knew he felt the same overwhelming sense of continuity, of meaning. They had created not just a family but a foundation for generations to come. As they grew older, Thomas and Olivia gradually handed over more of the daily ranch operations to Daniel and the other hands, but they never fully retired. Thomas still tracked when needed, though now he taught his methods to younger people who came to learn. Olivia still kept the books and made the major business decisions, though she consulted closely with Daniel on everything. They spent more time together, taking long rides through the land they had worked so hard to keep, remembering the struggles and celebrating the victories. They told their grandchildren stories about the early days, about mountain lions and sabotage, and the fight to keep the ranch running. On a perfect day in June of 1900, as the new century dawned full of promise and change, Olivia and Thomas sat on their porch, now surrounded by the noise and laughter of 3 grandchildren playing in the yard. Emma was expecting her first child, and James, now studying law, had just announced his engagement. "We did well," Thomas said, reaching over to take Olivia's hand. His hair was white now, his face deeply lined by sun and wind, but his eyes were still as sharp and intelligent as ever. "We did," Olivia agreed. Her own hair was silver, her hands showing the marks of decades of hard work, but she felt no regret for any of it. "Better than I ever dreamed possible." "I love you," Thomas said, as he had said countless times over the past 22 years. "Every day I wake up grateful that you saw past what everyone else saw, that you gave me a chance." "I love you too," Olivia replied. "You taught me that the world is bigger than the small boxes people try to put us in. You taught me to be brave." They sat in comfortable silence, hands linked, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of purple and gold. 3 generations of family surrounded them, proof that love and determination could overcome any obstacle. The ranch that Olivia had fought so hard to keep had become so much more than just land and cattle. It was a home, a legacy, a testament to the power of love that refused to be bound by society's rules. It was proof that 2 people from completely different worlds could find each other and build something beautiful together. As the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, Thomas pulled Olivia close. She rested her head on his shoulder, feeling his steady heartbeat, and thought about all the signs she had read wrong in her life, all the paths she almost took that would have led her away from this moment. But the most important sign she had ever read was the one in Thomas Zamri's heart that day he first came to her ranch. She had seen his honor, his strength, his capacity for love. She had read the signs that no one else could see, and in doing so, she had found her true home. The tracker who could read signs no cowboy could had found his place in the world. And the rancher's widow who had read his heart instead of listening to prejudice had found her happiness. Together, they had built a life that would echo through the generations, a love story that would be told and retold around family tables for years to come. As the night deepened and the children were called inside for bed, Thomas and Olivia remained on the porch, wrapped in each other's arms, grateful for every moment they had shared and every challenge they had overcome together. The land stretched out before them in the moonlight, wild and beautiful and forever theirs, just as they were forever each other's. Their story had begun with death and loss and the struggle to survive. But it had become a story of love, of family, of triumph over prejudice and hardship. It was the story of two people who had been cast aside by the world in different ways, who had found each other in the wild vastness of Colorado, and who had refused to let anything come between them. And it was a story that would never truly end, because it lived on in their children and grandchildren, in the ranch that bore both their names, in the legacy of courage and love they left behind. The Apache tracker had read the signs of the land better than any cowboy could. But the rancher's widow had read something far more important, the signs of his heart, the truth of his soul, the promise of their future together. And that had made all the difference.